cookie or popsicle, whichever you want.
Oreo cookie, I like it.
Okay, everybody put their phones on mute.
Can't do that.
Go ahead, feel free to film.
Thank you
Don't
very
be on
much.
me.
As you can see, gang, we have a very, very quiet panel. And some of these people have got to learn to come out of their shells. Will you sit down, please?
Not you, dear.
Not a straight man in the house. Hello, everybody. Thank you all for coming. Hey, where are you going?
Okay.
Do you know that you have interrupted everything? This is something new. The panel is taking pictures of the audience. Only at Marty Graham's convention. Yeah, I hear
I
you.
got you.
Well, thank you very much.
Going on Facebook.
I am Mel Simons. You're kidding.
Absolutely not.
We would have been here a little bit earlier, but Aileen was in the ladies' room reading Gone with the Wind. So that's why we're a few minutes late. I can't begin to tell you how delighted I am to be the MC for these four terrific people. Just a sentence or two about each one as I introduce them. Terrific lady, you all know her as a singer and dancer from the motion picture Annie. Let's have a nice warm welcome to Aileen Quinn. Are you going to behave or aren't you?
No.
No, I got a right answer.
There was a lot of newspapers that said I was cantankerous and sneaky. I used to put frogs in people's rooms.
I'd like to get a word in once in a while. A terrific lady, as a singer, as a songwriter, as an actress. I'd like a nice warm welcome for Geri Reischl. A dynamite lady, as an actress, as a singer, as an all-around terrific talent. How about a nice warm welcome for Tammy Locke, everybody? I have introduced three lovely people, and now it's your turn, Paul.
And now this
How everybody loves this guy, the wonderful shows he's done, The Happiest Millionaire, the Mickey Mouse Club, but especially from the Donna Reed Show. A nice round of applause for Mr. Paul Petersen. A little bit later, folks, we're going to open it up to you folks for a question and answer period, so get your questions ready. I want to begin by asking the four of you a general question. How old were you when you first started performing? Aileen, let's start with you.
Okay.
This helps.
I think I need that. That's right, you were doing very good at emceeing. Yeah, I started dancing when I was very young, so of course there were always the dance recitals at age 3 and 4, but officially performing would have been regional theater at age 6.5 or 7. It's good to have mom here too. 7. So yeah, 7 years old in regional theater and 8 on Broadway.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll get to Broadway in just a little bit. Geri, how about you? How old were you when you started performing?
I started when I was 6, and I started doing commercials and movies and everything like that, singing. And is my mic on?
Yeah, just talk nice and close to it. Very sexy, huh?
It's not up.
No.
I won't need one.
Obviously, she could talk in Yankee Stadium without a mic.
Here's the funny part. We call Tammy Golden Throat, and that's the truth.
Tammy,
she
how
could
about
break that wall if she wanted to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tammy, how about you? At what age did you start
Okay,
performing?
I was 18 months old. The very first production that I did, Robert Redford was my father. Whoa. How lucky can one get? And Diana Hyland was my mother. The lady that used to watch me all the time was unavailable that day to watch me, so my mother had to take me on a casting call with my sister, because she was already in the business filming. So she left me with the secretary, and the secretary left the room to get a cup of coffee, and I knew where my mom and my sister were, so I just got up. I was only 18 months. I opened up the door, and it slammed into one of the producers, and there were directors in there and some other people. It slammed right into him, and I walked in, and I said, "Mommy potty! Mommy potty! Hurry, Mom!" And the next thing I know, they looked at my sister, and they looked at me, and they said, "Mrs. Locke, we'd like her, not her."
Quite a beginning.
But my sister was actually really happy, because my sister was 5, and they wanted her to play a younger girl. And when you're 5, you don't want to play a younger girl. All you're thinking about is, I want to be a big girl. So she was happy, and it all worked out great.
Wow. Mr. Petersen, how old were you when you got the bug and started performing?
Never got the bug. Look, I got started in show business because my mom was bigger than me. Now here's the trouble. I could sing, I could dance, and I could act. And when they took me on that first job interview for the Mouseketeers, there were 5,000 kids and they hired 16. I was one of them. I have the distinction, as most of you know, of being the world's first ex-Mouseketeer, because I was the first kid they fired.
That was one of my, pardon me for interrupting, that was one of my questions I was going to ask you. How did you get the Mouseketeers and why were you fired?
Well,
Thank you. I was thinking the same question.
I could sing, I could dance. When I was 5, I think I came in 3rd at the Iowa State Fair singing. I mean, my friends know that I could sing and dance. And I did that on the audition, and I sang Lulu's Back in Town, and they let me do my whole routine and hired me that afternoon. But they didn't explain to me about being disciplined. You know, there were ladders to climb, there were kids to get in fights with, there were baseballs to chase. So I lasted 7 weeks, long enough to open Disneyland. And Tommy Cole and his mom had to come over to my house on Saturday morning to tell me I'd been fired.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, true story. 9 years old. But it didn't matter much, because by the time Mickey Mouse Club debuted, I'd already landed a national commercial and made more money in the commercial than the kids made on the Mickey Mouse Club.
And let me tell you, he sings fantastic.
In another era. I'm lucky I can get my breath.
Aileen, before you became the star of the movie Annie, you were one of the orphans on Broadway, weren't you? Would you tell us about that?
Very true. I guess I might as well hold this back and forth. I was, about 8 years old, and I auditioned for the Broadway show, and I had never seen it. So one of the first things that they asked me to do was, now that you got the role, you should go see the show tonight. That's your first assignment. And I got to understudy all of the orphans except for Molly and Annie. I was the swing orphan. So I would often have to, this was the best training in show business for anything, I had to combine 2 roles, because a lot of the girls in winter would get the flu or get laryngitis from those crazy Broadway high notes. And I would have to combine 2 orphans in one, do both of their blocking to make the dances and the scenes work, as well as change the costumes up in the personality. It was really especially crazy when you were trying to be like Pepper, who was really tough, and April, who was really sweet or Duffy. So it was the best training I ever had was in the Broadway show.
Wow.
Isn't that something? Now, I want to follow this up. When you got the role in the movie Annie, you beat out 8 8,000 gals. Tell us about that.
Over 8,000. And what people don't realize, and I realize now as an adult, a grown-up actress, that back then, because it was this big movie that was going to be this big deal and you're going to travel the world to promote it afterwards, which we did, 13 countries and 6 continents, it was a big audition process. I had 8 auditions over a year period. And the audition that sticks out in my mind as an actress, and especially now, out there auditioning, I remember when I met John Huston, the director, who was amazing. I'm so lucky I got to work with him before he passed. He sat me down in a room on my 3rd audition. First one I sang to a box that was supposed to be Sandy, and I sang Maybe and had to talk to the box. So that was the test for that one. On the 3rd audition, when I thought I lost the role, and especially my mom did, I met John Huston. He sat right next to me at a cute little table at a hotel, put his hand on mine, and asked me a few questions. And I remember him petting my hand, looking into my eyes very deeply, and it was over within 2 minutes. He just asked a few questions. And my mom said, well, that was fun. And you got your other auditions for commercials. I also did a bunch of commercials at age 8. And so she's like, that's okay, you'll get that commercial, which I think I had known I had gotten a commercial too that week. And she's like, don't worry, you didn't get the film. And the next thing I knew, I had a 4th callback, and it kept going, and the last 2 were in LA.
Wow.
Yeah, for the screen test. Yeah.
And you were amazing in that movie, just terrific.
Isn't that something?
Jerry,
Yes.
tell us about the Brady Bunch Hour and what led into that.
Well, also I had
Hello. I have arrived. No. Well, for the Brady Bunch, I started doing that when I was 16. I went on several auditions for it as well. One of the other girls that was up for the audition was Kathy Richards, which later became Kathy Hilton's mother. But when it came down to the final choosing, they chose me. I love doing that because I got to sing and dance and act. They did probably about 3,000 girls from the West Coast to the East Coast trying to replace Eve Plum because she decided not to do this show. And so I finally got the role, and they welcomed me very nicely. They told me they felt like I'd always been a part of the family, and we had a great time doing the show, and they made me feel very welcome, so it was great.
I got chills.
Wow. There is a lady here that I want to ask a question to, but I can't think of her name. Folks, would you help me please when I pause? I hear the cottonwoods whispering above.
Tammy, Tammy, Tammy's in love.
All right, this is not an audition, just
He's sitting over there.
You got the job.
That's my husband over there, Tom.
Which one is your husband? Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Tammy's husband.
He's the great-grandson of the president of Mexico,
Sir,
and his
you have
grandfather
my
rode with
deepest
Pancho
sympathy.
Villa.
I'm terribly, terribly sorry. Tammy, I find you have a very interesting nickname. People call you Bubbles.
That's true.
How did that begin?
Oh, Lord. I've just got an exploding or bubbling personality. I'm all over the place. I've got a big personality. And when Paul found out, he called me Golden Throat because he found out that my voice was very powerful and I'd broken many stereo systems without a problem. Drew snaps for that one. But I've been called Bubbles all of my life. I mean, there was a point, I think, when, I guess there always is, when you're in your young youth, basically, where you pack on a little bit of pounds, and that probably added on to the big bubbles.
I ain't going to touch that line.
It's kind of like reading a knit sweatshirt.
But I found out that no matter how many pounds I am, I'm still the lovable person I am.
We all agree, don't we, gang? Paul, you have had an amazing career with the Mickey Mouse Club, The Happiest Millionaire. and especially people know and love you most, I think, from the Donna Reed Show. Tell us about Donna as a person and your relationship with her.
Oh, sure. I'm always happy to tell this. I shared this earlier with you, I think.
Yeah.
My grandfather knew Donna Reed Mullinger's father in Western Iowa. And on the first day of the Donna Reed Show, he walked up to Donna, Academy Award-winning actress, the boss on the show, and he walked over and said, Donna Mullinger, I know your dad. And I called her mom. That's just the truth. But I knew she was an MGM trained actress. I knew she had Academy Award. She was a wonderful actress, but a loving person who had promised, along with Carl Betts, to make sure that Shelley and I were nurtured as children, not as actors, but as the children we were. And I'm pleased to say things worked out. I always thought it's so much more important to be a good person than a good performer. And Donna believed that and was a good performer too.
Wow. Isn't that nice to hear? Aileen, with the success of your performance in the movie Annie, I remember a very strong rumor that they were going to do a sequel to it. What happened and why did not?
Yeah, that's a tricky topic because yes, I was under contract when I did do all those 8 auditions and traveled the world afterwards. That was part of the contract, was that you were supposed to be under it for, I believe, 6 or 7 years. So yes, they were supposed to make Annie 2 and Annie 3. And the one audition, auditioning the director, I met a director who was working on that first script, and it was going to be more based on the comic strip, where Annie was going to go through the swamps and Punjab was going to rescue me. So I kind of remember the script, and it never materialized. So I don't know what happened, but I was under contract for 6 years. Wow. But luckily, theater came back into my life, which was my roots. I always trained in the theater, and I was able to go back into theater, and that's what led to my Broadway and Broadway national tours, luckily.
Tell us about some of these national tours you did in theater.
Well, I have a variety, as always in my career. It's very diverse. After a bunch of commercials and animation, I was able to do animation right after the contract expired. I did things like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz and the Charmkins. That was from the 80s. And then for the tours, I got to play 3 very diverse roles. Everything from the sweet Peter Pan, I was in that, and we sat down on Broadway for a bit and toured. And the other one was Fiddler on the Roof, of course, a Quinn, of course, played little Havala, of course, that fits. But I was a dancer like Hava and had her personality, so I was Hava. And that was a beautiful show, gosh. That last night in the circle with everyone around, we just bawled. It was beautiful, like a show within a show, saying goodbye. And then I also did, in the other direction, Saturday Night Fever, and I played Annette, which that was probably what I would call my growth role. It was more dramatic acting. It was bringing all the talents together, like we're all talking. I noticed we're all triple threats here, singing, dancing, and acting, and it was kind of fun to do the disco 70s. Yeah, so I loved that. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
You lived my dream life.
I did?
Yes, she did. Absolutely. To do something you love to do and get paid for it, you can't beat it. Geri, one thing has fascinated me about you, and that is your singing. Now, I've done a little research. You have sung with Marty Robbins, with Sammy Davis Jr. You were one of the kids in his nightclub act. Tell us about Sammy.
Well, when I was 14, I toured with Sammy Davis Jr. We would do 2 shows a night, a dinner show and a late show. And one evening I got the hiccups singing with him. So he completely stops the show and he wants to know who has the hiccups. And I had to put my hand up. My mom's backstage. She just knows I'm going to be fired. That's it. I'm not going to be one of Sammy's kids anymore, singing with him and dancing every night. But he stopped the show. He asked a lady in the audience for a glass of water to maybe help me with my hiccups. And from that night on, He had to bring it up at every show that this little girl got the hiccups. And he brought me stuffed animals, he brought me flowers. He would come into my dressing room with fake fangs, trying to bite my neck. I don't know why he did that, but it was a great experience. I knew that Sammy was, a big name, a big entertainer, but I'm 14. I didn't really realize till I was older who I had really been performing with, and then my jaw dropped, hit the floor, and I said, oh my gosh, I was really performing with Sammy Davis Jr., and on opening night, Elvis Presley and Lisa Marie were in the audience, sitting together, and now that was shocking in itself. I'm surprised I could remember any dance steps or anything then. He snuck out the back before I got to meet him, but I can say that I actually performed for Elvis Presley.
Wow. Now that's terrific. What a shame he did not come backstage to say hello to all of you. Amazing. Tammy, some of your, one movie you did with, I think, one of the best actors around, Hang 'em High, Clint Eastwood. Tell me about your relationship with Clint and what was he like?
To be quite honest, we didn't visit very much. I was more of a had a featured role. I still get paid for it to today. I had 2 separate scenes in it, one of which where I was with my family in the wagon when he comes into town and he's talking to my father. And then the other one was when we were walking down the plank sidewalk in town. I was running, and that was my other scene, and I'm talking and yelling and stuff like that. And so I didn't actually get to visit with him very much. He was in demand a lot, is what I remember.
Oh, bet.
Yeah, they were pulling him left and right, and you got to do this, and you got to do that, and that's what I remember. But he was a very compassionate person. He did give me a hug and and welcome and stuff like that. But as far as doing a one-on-one, we weren't basically able to do that because he had so many other things that they were needing him for.
But basically, you're a pretty good guy.
He's a wonderful man. Absolutely wonderful man. I saw him for the first time after all of these years. I think it was for the Silver Spur Award. I think it was the Silver Spur or Golden Loop, one of those two. But he was getting an award along with Anne Margaret that night. And to have both of my, well, he wasn't my parent, but to have my mother there and then Clint Eastwood, and that was the night that unfortunately some paparazzis and stuff like that really started kind of attacking him. We were in the midst of a major conversation, and some people just started getting down on him, and he took off and had to run, to leave with his wife and stuff. He just wanted out because, sometimes they can get overpowering, and a lot of people don't understand that. And you have to keep the space. Now, for me, I love all my fans. I give them hugs, I give them kisses, and that's how I kind of keep them. I don't even know what the word would be. Kind of keep them within me. I treat them as I want them to treat me. And I love them all, so.
That's very nice, Tammy. I don't like to complain, but I never got a hug and a kiss from you.
Honey, that I saved the best for last.
Ooh, you're all witnesses, you hear? Paul, one of your major talents that we have not brought up is your singing. You had some hit records. You had a top 10 record with my dad.
Yep.
Tell us about that, your singing career.
When you're a kid on a television show, somebody's going to ask you to sing. And Shelley and I both got that request from Donna Reed's husband, Tony Owen, who talked like this.
Oh, wow.
Hey, Paul, you want to sing?
And you sang.
What do you suppose my answer was? No, come on. Ricky Nelson was a big star, and I loved the fast cars and the faster women, and I couldn't wait to sing a record. As it happened, Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, people who wrote songs like On Broadway, you lost that love and feeling. Barry wrote My Dad for his father when he passed. We changed the tense of the lyrics so I could sing it to Carl Betts, and it's a classic television moment. And I don't sing it out on the road because look, I'm a father. I've got sons. I've lost a lot of fathers, but I'm awful proud of it. And every Father's Day,
Amen.
you know, up it comes, which is nice.
Nice. You
Amen.
did a great job on that song.
Well, thank you.
Well, folks, I know many of you are anxious to ask these four delightful people some questions, so if you will just raise your hand, I'll call on you, and then I'll repeat the question so that everybody can hear. Ma'am, right in front. And address your question to a particular person.
Hi, I'd like to ask my question for all of you. My name is Jackie, and there are times I volunteered at the National Capital Radio TV Museum in Louis. So I always ask this every time I'm here. If you could pick one work that each of you have done, one piece of work that you could say, I like this to represent me. It could be your favorite episode, a favorite song, something that's unsung that we haven't really seen. Anything that represents each of you, what would it be that says, yeah, this represents me?
Okay, let me repeat the question. That's a great question. I want to repeat it so you people in the cheaper seats in the back can hear.
And hi, Jackie.
What was your very, very favorite thing of all the performance, the different shows you did? Aileen, let's start with you.
Oh, great. Actually, you can start. If she's ready, she go for it.
You're
I'm still thinking.
Well, I would have to say the Brady Bunch. I mean, I did other wonderful pieces of work I loved, but I would have to say the Brady Bunch because not only did I get to act, I got to sing, which is my passion, and I also got to dance. So it was all of the three things that I enjoyed doing the most, all rolled up into one.
Very nice. Jerry?
You ready?
Jerry?
We're still thinking, right?
No,
Jerry, what?
Oh, I thought you were going to add something to it.
Oh.
Okay, Tammy. You want to go? Oh, come on. You're very anxious.
I think I got it. This is so hard because I've been blessed to do so many years in theater, 25 years, so I was actually going through all the roles, and it was, there were a lot to go through, so I guess obviously Annie, because it was a very special time in my life, would be number one, and just like John Huston, besides, you know, the acting that I did have to do in it that was unlike me, because I'm not like Annie in the sense with her toughness. As you can see, I'm more on the shyer side. I was the elevator arm girl in school, even though I was on Broadway at 8. I was a little more shy, so doing all those fight scenes, that was outside of character. So I'd probably like to be more like Annie's spunk, because I tend to be a little more shy. So I don't know if it represents me. I would say Saturday Night Fever, as Annette, she was very beloved to me, so I really liked that role. And then I did a beautiful show, Shenandoah, where I played, that's a beautiful show, and I got to play Jenny, who was also spunky. I guess they liked me a little spunky, but I kind of liked her sense of family and her strength, so there's too many to choose, but obviously Annie is the number one, yes, but I wasn't that tough. John Huston had to tell me, punch him harder, because he was an ex-boxer.
Nice. Tammy, how about your favorite?
I can't say that I have one favorite. It's hard. Because that's really hard because I've done so many things. But I'm truly honored to have been able to be Amy Monroe of the Monroes. How I got it was just amazing. I ran into the big wigs of 20th Century Fox's office and threw my feet up onto the table, and I picked up his phone, and I'm talking on the phone as if I'm making all of these deals and pointing and stuff like that, and he says, well, that's it, Mrs. Locke. Mrs. Locke, she just landed Amy of the Monroes. But I mean, in that show, I was able to scream, to cry, to run, to have a blast, to have a wonderful family. The only thing I didn't get to do was to sing. So I teamed up with the nephews and son-in-law of the great Tex Williams of Smoke, Smoke, Smoke That Cigarette. And I toured with that band for 6 years. So there's where my singing came involved, and was able to put many, many long lost types of relationships back together when I sang their favorite song.
Very nice, very nice. Paul, how about you? A special memory for something you especially enjoyed?
You know, this is really tough.
It sure is.
My dad, obviously. Racing my Cobra, obviously. Watching my children being born.
Absolutely.
I'm already in the Television Hall of Fame. Cool. I appreciate that. But what I want is to pass this legislation and make the rules for kids equal everywhere, just like they are for animals.
Amen.
Thank you, Paul. That was a lovely question. Sir, your question.
Tammy,
Yes, sir.
tell us how you got into roller derby.
Yeah, a roller derby skater. What do you think of that? How did that happen?
Well, I was 16. My sister Cheryl worked as a waitress in a place called Dodge Saloon in the city of Norwalk, California. I wanted to go with her all the time because it was a country club. It had cowboys, and I was 16, and I knew all about them. You know what I'm saying? I was raised with 14 horses, so that came hand in hand. But anyways, there was a man there that entertained all the time. His name is, and still is, he's still alive, is Troy Walker. He was kind of like a cross-dresser, but in those days, the points of view weren't like they are today, where people just automatically hate somebody because of what they look like or whatever. Troy Walker was an enormous figure in my life. He taught me about entertainment. He taught me about a lot of things. He took me under his wing. He had these long fingernails, and he could do basically kung fu and stuff like that. But he taught me a lot about the business. And he used to take me to his house all the time. Humongous house I'd never met anybody like him. He was just extraordinary. His best friends, John Hall, the famous John Hall and Ralphie Valadares of the LA T-Birds. Best friends. So Troy says, Tammy, come with me skating. I'm going to Pico Rivera. It was a roller derby type of place. They had a bank track all set up there. And he says, come with me. He says, I want you to skate. I want you to meet John Hall and Ralphie. I'm like, okay, that works for me. So my sister Cheryl and I went with Troy Walker and his friends, his entourage basically, and we went to Pico Rivera. And I started skating, and I met John and I met Ralphie, and I was just so intrigued with them. I had seen some roller derby on television. And John says, Tammy, you want to try the bank track? And I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. Give it to me. I'll do it. So he showed me how to get up onto the bank track, and I skated around. It was kind of weird, because the bank track it's kind of like a very thin wood, but it's very strong, and it bounces with you. So when you see that they're landing and stuff like that, it's not so much of a powerful surge onto their kneecaps to where you would, on concrete, it would really affect you. But on something like that, it's not a big deal. So he started teaching me how to do things like fall down, jump, get up. He lined a bunch of his skaters up. There was like 6 of them. And he says, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to go up the track, come down it, go up the track, and when you come down it this time, I want you to give it with all your might, and I want to see you jump over those people. And I just went, okay. So I did it. I went up it, and I'm skating on the flat track part, and I went back up, and man, when I came down, I was going so fast, and I literally jumped up, and I completely cleared every single one of them. He says, you're a Detroit Devil.
Wow. Cool.
I landed it right then and there, and Troy's over going, he says, I knew it, she's a tomboy, I just knew it. And that's how I became a Detroit Devil. Proud of it, I'll tell you.
Wow. Over here, yes, please. Two-part for Paul.
That's my father, you mean?
Paul.
Okay.
I think you were kissed by Sophia Loren.
I got several hugs. I have a picture of myself asleep on her lap.
Wow.
Yes, I got to sing with her. But I was 12 years old, Cary Grant was in the way, and a guy named Carlo Ponti.
Oh my gosh.
On a more serious note,
Sure.
you've had a great career.
Yes.
You've also spent your life trying to help out child actors.
Amen.
Yeah. Sure. Look, a minor consideration. The kernel of it was in my own experience. I had a lot of issues to deal with. You know, when fame slips away and you're in your mid-20s, it's the exact opposite of ordinary people's experience because their sphere of influence expands, they become more productive, more efficient. Anyway, I discovered when I wrote Walt, Mickey, and Me in 1977 that a lot of kid actors had similar experiences, and we shared many things. Among them, stage parents, absence of money, loss of respect, and bit by bit, as I educated myself and got sober, another big trick, I was able to help other former kid stars. And when Rusty Hamer killed himself, it became a formalized foundation because there were a lot of kids in trouble. In January of 1990, Bonaducci had been fired from another job, and they find him naked in a closet, not with a chimp, but naked in a closet.
By himself?
By himself. Drew Barrymore was writing an autobiography about her drug addiction starting at age 9 when she did Firestarter in North Carolina. Jay North, Dennis the Menace, was in serious psychological trouble. And it was as if the world turned, because people whom before would not help me couldn't wait to help. Doctors, lawyers, people in the industry started to line up and say, what can we do? Because frankly, we're all tired of the black eye that these kids give the industry and what can be, as you know, Amy, a wonderful experience. There is nothing more fun than performing.
That's right.
And particularly if you have something substantial to share with people. But this gets taken away from kids. So, what are we now? Somehow 900 former kid stars are in the group now. And we do a lot of good work.
By the way, Paul saved my son. Unfortunately, in school, they used to treat him because they knew who I was. So they treated my son like really bad. And my son started walking the wrong road, and Paul came into my son's life and changed it around. And now my son is, well, Tom and our son is 20, and he's got 2 jobs. He works all the time. I never see him, and he's an upstanding citizen.
And he'll be fine.
It can't get any better than that. And thank God for Paul. Minor consideration.
Discretion is an important factor. And celebrity is it's a slippery thing because you can get dimed for doing nothing.
Yeah.
And helping the gang is mostly a silent thing. We show up. And I hope you never hear about it. Yeah. Because they deserve a whole life.
Amen.
Very commendable, Paul. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Can you please tell us something that, the funniest thing that ever happened to you in the business?
Is this to all 4?
That's to Paul.
No.
Everybody.
Oh,
everybody, all right.
Funniest thing that ever happened, who wants to be first?
He's got something.
Okay, Jerry?
Well, it goes to when I was doing the Brady Bunch. We would dress up in crazy costumes for every show and have famous guest stars on it as well. Well, we were doing this skit with Milton Berle, and I had to wear a huge chicken suit. It had very big wings. I had the big chicken feet. I was probably standing on a pedestal, I don't know, probably about this high off the ground. We had our big, huge swimming pool in front of us. And we were dancing, and I started flopping my wings a little too hard. And in this chicken suit, I actually took flight. And I almost landed in the pool. I landed flat on my back. Robert Reed was dressed like a Carmen Miranda. He had a big, huge fruit bowl on top of his head, a beautiful, sparkly dress, two coconuts that hung down to here was his outfit, but he managed to get off of his pedestal and come to see if I was okay. Everybody was real serious at first. I said, oh, I'm fine, but just can you please get me back up? I can't get myself back up. Everybody started laughing, so that's my chicken suit story.
Wow. Tammy, how about you? Funniest thing that ever happened?
Oh my gosh. Well, at the time, I didn't think it was funny at all. I was just a little girl on the Monroes. But James Brolin, I'm very proud to say, was part of the cast on our TV series. And he and Kevin Schultz, who was my brother, we were in one of the stalls with the horses, and James Brolin was saying, oh, Tammy, went over and he grabbed one of the salt rocks that the horses lick. Yeah, this one had been licked quite a few times. So he goes, oh, Tammy, this is candy. This is candy, Tammy. It tastes so good. Oh, yeah, Kevin, you had some? Yeah, it was really good. Here, honey, taste it. And I took the biggest lick, and all my spit was coming down my face, down my neck and everything, and I just looked at James Brolin, and if looks could kill, he said, I probably would have been dead by now, but I didn't think it was funny, but everybody else on the whole lot did. And the sad part is my sisters did the same thing in a restaurant. What the heck is it? A big plate of pancakes came, and they said it was ice cream, a big, one of those scoops of butter. My sisters were saying that was ice cream, and I took the whole scoop and put it in my mouth. And here it comes down, all over me.
Wow.
I'm the one everybody wants to play tricks on. What am I going to say?
I finally remembered one, because like I said, I had so many theater experiences. There's always, fun things in the theater, and people played pranks. Like in that Shenandoah, I had a baby, and they drew it. It's all the little fun things, the pranks in theater. And during the Annie filming, Albert used to tickle me under the knees on breaks and do lots of funny things and tell me jokes. So that was just fun. But funny was when I was doing another production of Annie, actually in North Carolina. And not only did I have the mic fall down when I was doing the famous dance with Daddy Warbucks when we get together, so not only did I have that not secured and hang between my legs, but the best, that was interesting. And I just used it and held it and kind of swung it. What are you going to do? But also, two stories Annie related. I guess I have done Annie 3 times. The first one I forgot was my Broadway debut. I forgot the most important. When I was 8 years old, I went on for Tessie as my first Broadway debut. And she's the one like, Miss Hannigan, Molly threw up on that pillow. And I'm supposed to open the door and go through 2 double doors and scream at Miss Hannigan. But we had never worked with sets. They were drawing my rehearsals in a carpet like this, but you could see it. And it was all fake doors. And I was, I guess, overzealous. And I grabbed that knob, and it came in my hand. And I heard the whole audience go, my Broadway debut. And I said, oh my gosh, in my mind. And I said, oh well, and I threw the doorknob and I ran around it and said, Miss Hannigan, and continued the scene, and they all applauded. But my favorite was in a production of Annie in North Carolina. I don't even know if you remember this, Mom. The quick change in Annie is very famous, that it's really quick. So you go from, the orphan wear to this wig and full dress, and you kick down the stairs. And my locket, the famous locket part, was all like twisted up. And I went over to Daddy Warbucks and he said, Annie, give me your locket. I have something for you. Give me your locket. And I looked into Harv Presnell's eyes. I'm sure you all know Harv Presnell. And I said, Daddy, I'll give it to you in a little while. I need a little more time. And the curtain came down. I said, Jesus, what do you mean you'll give it to me in a little while? I want it now. I'm Daddy Warbucks. So that was it, my locket.
Really great anecdotes. Yes.
That's great.
Paul, how about you? Can you think of something especially funny that happened?
On the Donna Reed show, we always ended up in the kitchen at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when people are tired. We had a scene to shoot right away. And inevitably, Carl Betts, who had trouble picking up eggs and speaking a line of dialogue, would fumble a line. And that would result in hysterics, which was costing the company thousands, and Donna was the worst of all. Once she broke up, the day was done. And there are a series of those. Shelley will tell you, it's absolute riotous, mostly with props, bad props. I think the funniest personally to me was when I danced with the vacuum cleaner. But they just let the camera run. A Hoover. And at the end of it, I think I was 13 and I was supposed to, at the end, just, finish the scene. And I elected to jump over the Hoover, which was an upright, and I didn't quite clear it. And
no.
That's one of those funny outtakes.
Great. Hey, your questions are terrific. We have time for 1 or 2 more questions, gang. Just raise your hand. Sir in the back, yes.
Way in the back.
Yell it out, please.
Yeah, for Paul.
Paul.
I love your voice. Did you ever do any voiceover or DJ work at all?
Not once. I never got asked to do a cartoon voice. I mean, Jane North was doing it. I never got to do radio stuff. I was like a guest. And I don't know why that is. I did about everything else in the business, but it just never happened. And I think, it's that Midwest accent. It's the fur and the get, and well, that's how it is. But I miss doing that because I love doing old radio shows. Tommy Cook will tell you. I mean, I get a kick out of that. How fun to theater of the mind.
Yeah, exactly. I love that.
That is a lot of fun, and you don't have to dress up, and you can hold the script. Sure. How cool is that?
That's the best.
I agree, Paul. I've seen you do old time radio at some of the Spreadback conventions, and you're terrific.
I love it. It's great fun. Sheila James Kuehl got to end up her radio career the year before I started, and she and Eddie Hodges, and Beverly Washburn, they ran all over the city of Los Angeles into radio studios to do shows. I never got to do that. I would have loved it.
Oh, absolutely.
Theater of the mind. Any gentleman in the green? Yes, sir.
Well,
I have a question for you.
For who? Who's your question for, sir? Paul.
Everybody,
That's
it's
this gentleman
Paul.
here.
My name is Paul. It's Mr. Petersen was my father. Go ahead.
How long do you have to study each week to learn all those lines?
Well, not at all. We had 2 days of rehearsal. You read the script cold. By the Monday, the second day of rehearsal, we all knew the script. It was a character I was familiar with. And I don't care what show, movie, it didn't matter. That's the easy part. The trick is making the people you work with believe you.
Exactly.
Whether Donna Reed told me something really great. She said, it's not acting, it's reacting. You got 2 ears, 1 tongue. Listen, Paul. Listen to what actors are saying. And I always thought that stood me in good stead. But remembering stuff? Shoot, that was easy. The last time I did a movie with Patty McCormick, I hadn't worked in a while, and she asked me after the long and involved scene, how'd it go, Paul? And I said, well, the truth is I was writing letters to senators while we did the scene. and that's it's just me. I don't take this very seriously. I don't. Come on.
I think we have time for one last question. Sir? Yes.
Yeah, Jerry.
stepping into a well-established, like a very, did you find that like pretty daunting challenge? How were you received right away?
Well, being that I was 16 when I went into that show, I never really thought of that much. I had worked with Susan Olsen before on commercials, and so we knew of each other, so that made it easier. I'm very easygoing, I'm outgoing, I like everybody. I never even thought of them not maybe liking me or not accepting me. I'm a very accepting person, so I just kind of think everybody else will be too. And I was fortunate enough that they did accept me right away and made me feel like a part of the Brady family right from the get-go. So I was very lucky with that. Everybody was very sweet and nice.
That's great.
And she was a great one.
Oh,
Yep.
Thank
Well,
you.
folks, in the interest of time, I cannot begin to tell you what a delight it has been to be the moderator, the MC, with you four terrific people. And I think the four of you were absolutely terrific. Would you agree with me? And you've been a terrific audience. The questions were terrific. What I'm going to ask the panel to do is we'll have you stand up for a minute or two if anybody wants to take some group pictures.
I was going to have all of them stand up so I could show family they stood up for us.
Not a bad idea.
Standing ovation.
So folks, let's stand up, maybe some group photos.
Okay, one group. I wanted you perfect.